I found some of the most bizarre PS games, so sit back and enjoy the video. LSD Dream Emulator. Okay, so LSD Dream Emulator might just be the weirdest thing that ever happened to the PlayStation 1. Like, genuinely weird. This 1998 game from Asmic Ace Entertainment was based on an actual dream diary that some developer kept for 10 years. 10 years of writing down their dreams, and then someone said, yeah, let's turn this into a game. Here's the thing though, it's not really a game. There's no health bar, no enemies, no princess to save, nothing. You just walk around these completely bizarre dreamscapes that change and morph in ways that make absolutely no sense. You'll touch a wall and suddenly you're in a gray city with floating eyeballs everywhere. Bump into a person and the entire world just changes. Poof, you're somewhere completely different now. The game supposedly tracked what you saw across multiple sessions and used that to influence future dreams, but honestly, nobody really knows how it worked. The developers kept it mysterious on purpose. And the soundtrack? Absolutely haunting. Combined with visuals that range from, okay, that's unsettling, to, I need to turn this off right now. LSD created this atmosphere that nothing else has matched. They never released it outside Japan. Probably because how do you even market this? Hey kids, want to wander around aimlessly in disturbing environments with no objective? Yeah, that's not going on a retail shelf next to Crash Bandicoot. Incredible Crisis. Incredible Crisis is what happens when someone takes the most normal concept ever, a family trying to get home for grandma's birthday, and decides to make it absolutely insane. This 1999 game from Polygon Magic starts simple enough. You're a regular salaryman, just trying to get through your day. But then, everything goes wrong in the most ridiculous ways possible. 1 minute, you're escaping from a falling elevator, which, okay, that's pretty intense. But then suddenly, you're doing aerobics, while the entire building is collapsing around you. Then, there's a giant boulder chasing you. Then, you're in a full-blown musical dance number for no apparent reason. The game just keeps escalating with zero explanation. Nothing connects to anything else. It's like the developers were writing the story and kept saying, you know what would be random? And just threw it in there. The art style mixes these cel-shaded cartoon characters with realistic backgrounds, which makes the whole experience feel even more disjointed and dreamlike. But here's what's wild. It kind of works. Like, it's stressful and confusing, and you're never quite sure what's happening. But there's something brilliant about how it just commits to the chaos. It's the perfect example of Japanese developers in the 90s just doing whatever they wanted with the PlayStation, and nobody stopping them.
Pepsiman. All right, let's talk about Pepsiman. This is the one everyone remembers. This 1999 game, developed by KID, is literally a Pepsi commercial that someone turned into an actual game, and it's become this legendary cult classic. The main character is this chrome-bodied superhero who exists only to deliver Pepsi to people. That's his entire purpose in life. And the gameplay? Pepsiman runs. That's it. He just runs forward through city streets, construction sites, all these dangerous places, trying to reach the Pepsi at the end of each level. He can't really fight, he can barely jump. He mostly just runs, slides, and does this awkward little hop when he needs to. It's basically an endless runner, before endless runners were a thing. But what makes Pepsiman absolutely legendary is everything around the gameplay. Between levels, you get these live-action cutscenes of this random American guy just sitting on his couch, chugging Pepsi, and talking to the camera in English. These scenes have nothing to do with the game. They're just there. Why? Nobody knows. They just add to the weirdness. And the sound design is incredible. Pepsiman has his own theme song. Pepsiman.
Pepsiman.
that plays over and over until it gets stuck in your head for days. Plus, he's constantly crashing into things, getting hit by trucks, just absolutely eating it in the most cartoonish ways possible. The game knows it's ridiculous and just leans all the way into it. The crazy part? It's actually a pretty good game, like legitimately challenging with tight controls and creative level design. The later stages require real skill and quick reflexes. It's blatant corporate advertising, but the developers actually cared and made something fun. Pepsiman never came out in the West officially, so it became this sought-after import title. Now with YouTube and Twitch, it's had this whole second life with new generations discovering it and going, "What the hell is this?" It's perfect. It's the kind of weird, corporate-sponsored game that could only exist in the late 90s.
Vibb-Ribbon. So the guy who made Parappa the Rapper, Masaya Matsuura, decided his next game would be even weirder. Vibb-Ribbon came out in 1999, and it's this rhythm game where you control Vibb-Ri, a rabbit made entirely of simple white lines. The whole game looks like someone's very first attempt at computer graphics. Just white lines on a black background. That's it. But here's where it gets cool. Vibb-Ri has to navigate this obstacle course that's generated by music. And the absolutely mind-blowing feature, you could take the game disc out and put in your own CDs. The game would read any music CD and create levels based on the songs. In 1999, this was black magic as far as most players were concerned. The simple graphics weren't just an aesthetic choice. They meant the entire game could fit in the PlayStation's RAM. So you'd load it up, then swap to your own music. Want to play Vibb-Ribbon to your favorite rock album? Done. Your dad's old jazz collection? Sure. Your embarrassing pop CDs you don't want anyone to know about? The game doesn't judge. And despite being literally just lines, Vibb-Ri has so much personality. She sings, dances, reacts to what's happening with these adorable animations. When you mess up, she devolves, from rabbit to frog to worm to just a squiggle. There's this real emotional investment in keeping your line rabbit from losing herself. It's weird how much you end up caring about a few animated lines.
Tale of the Sun. Tale of the Sun is this 1997 game that's basically impossible to explain. You play as a caveman, and your tribe's goal is to build a tower to the sun using mammoth tusks. But that's like barely the point of the game. Mostly, you just wander around this massive open world as a prehistoric human doing caveman stuff. You hunt animals, you eat food to get stronger, you sleep when you're tired, time passes, you age, eventually you die, and then you play as your descendant. The game has this strange cycle of life thing going on, where generations pass and your tribe slowly evolves. You can find better weapons, discover new areas, but it all happens at this glacial pace that's either meditative or boring, depending on your mood. The weirdest part is how aimless it feels. There's technically an objective with the tower, but you can just ignore it and live your caveman life. The graphics are super primitive, even for PS1, with this weird fog everywhere and basic polygons. Everything has this dreamlike, lonely quality to it. You're just this tiny caveman in a huge, empty world, trying to survive. It's the kind of game that could only exist in the late 90s, when developers were still figuring out what 3D gaming could be. Some people found it boring, others found it strangely addictive and zen-like. Either way, it's definitely weird. Osamu Sato's Eastern Mind. Eastern Mind did get a PS1 port in Japan, and it's even more incomprehensible than the LSD game. You've lost your soul to your brother, and to get it back, you explore Tongnu, an island shaped like a giant screaming face. Everything operates on this bizarre Eastern mysticism mixed with surrealist art. You click on eyeballs that become doors. Characters speak in cryptic riddles that barely translate.
One moment, you're inside a giant face. The next, you're in a room filled with floating fish people. Nothing connects logically. The game has 9 different lives, represented by Magatama jewels, and losing them changes how you can interact with the world. But the game never explains this. You just have to figure it out through trial and error, and accepting that nothing will make conventional sense. The whole aesthetic is claustrophobic and overwhelming. Every single screen is packed with clickable objects, strange symbols, and visual noise. It feels like someone tried to cram an entire philosophy degree into a point-and-click adventure, and then translated it through a broken AI.
Katamari Demarcy.
Katamari Demarcy from 2004 is probably the most famous weird game, but it deserves mention because it's so weird. The king of all cosmos got drunk and destroyed all the stars, so he sends his tiny son, you, to Earth to roll up random objects into balls that become new stars. This is presented as completely normal. You roll this sticky ball called a Katamari around and it picks up anything smaller than it. Start with thumbtacks and ants. Soon you're rolling up cats and furniture. Eventually, you're absorbing buildings and clouds and islands. The scale gets absolutely absurd. The king of all cosmos is this giant, fabulous, codpiece-wearing monarch who alternates between praising and insulting you. His dialogue is poetic and bizarre. We feel the whole world. We feel the whole universe. We feel we are grand and big. He's simultaneously supportive and emotionally abusive, congratulating you one moment and calling you disappointing the next. What makes Katamari genuinely weird is how it treats the apocalyptic premise as silly and fun. You're erasing human civilization by rolling people and buildings into balls, and the game presents this as delightful and whimsical. The people scream as you absorb them, but the music is this upbeat J-pop that makes everything feel cheerful. The soundtrack is legendary, catchy Japanese pop songs that get stuck in your head for days. Na 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 Katamari Demarcy. It's impossible to feel stressed while playing because the music is so relentlessly upbeat, even as you're committing mass destruction. The game has this dreamlike quality where nothing is explained and everything is accepted. Why is the king so big? Why does rolling things into a ball create stars? Why are there rainbows everywhere? The game never answers these questions because they don't matter. It's operating on its own bizarre internal logic. What's really wild is that this was creator Keita Takahashi's vision of making a game that was just pure, simple fun. He wanted something anyone could understand, rolling a ball and making it bigger. But the execution is so strange and Japanese that it became this cult phenomenon. The sequels kept the weirdness but never quite captured the original's perfect balance of simple gameplay and absolute chaos. People got obsessed with finding everything you could roll up. There are hundreds of objects with funny descriptions in the collection menu. Rolling up a sumo wrestler, a baseball player, your own cousins who are also tiny princes. The game doesn't judge. It just lets you absorb everything into your ever-growing ball of chaos.